You've been a monk for 30 years. If I look across society, what I see are a lot of people with low-grade addictions, things like alcohol, social media, pornography, online shopping. And it seems to me that the root cause of a lot of these addictions is distraction. In your latest book, you make the case that distraction, or the pushing away of our feelings of pain, of discomfort, is actually the cause of many of our problems. So I guess my first question is, do you agree that we are a society that seems to be addicted to distraction? And if you do, what's the underlying cause?
I think we're definitely addicted to distraction. And of course, the way we use technology has really fed into that. So I went away into a 4-year-long retreat in 2005. And when I came out of that retreat in 2009, everything had changed in the landscape of technology. So during those 4 years, the iPhone was launched and YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all of those things happened. So when I came out of that retreat, I was quite startled by how things had sped up, because I'd been away from ordinary living and now I'm back and seeing the difference. And so just noticing how everybody's face is buried in a phone and there's this sort of constant barrage, this invasive nature to information, advertising, social media, all of that. And so that's incredibly addictive. And so, yes, we are all drowning in addictions of various sorts, and they are all based on distraction. What is it we're trying to distract ourselves from is I think we don't really know how to face up to our own feelings. So we use things to food, phones, anything to kind of get away from ourselves.
Yeah. There's a quote in the introduction of your book, Handbook for Hard Times, which is sublime. I genuinely mean that, which I'd love to read to you because I think it really speaks to this. In pushing away discomfort, we usually don't see how the discomfort lies in the pushing. It's our habit of chasing pleasure and running away from hardship that is the real problem. And as any habit simply proliferates, so we constantly chase more and push away more, reinforcing our sense of dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
Because there's a certain irony there where we're trying to use these activities, acquire these things, engage in these behaviors to avoid feeling what we're feeling. But you're sort of making the point that actually doing that makes the problem worse. So why is that? And also, just to play devil's advocate for a minute, what's wrong with people engaging in these behaviors?
There's nothing wrong with anything per se, but is it making us suffer? That's the question. Is it creating more suffering? And I think it is, because the more you run after something, the more it seems elusive. We never actually get what we want. And that's because when we're engaged in running after that thing, we're just building more of a habit to run after something. So even if we get what we want, we then find we want something else or a better version of it. The wanting never seems to go away. And in a way, we're just feeding more wanting. So the mind wants more because it's creating a habit of wanting more. So is it that we ever actually know what we want? Because we may get it and then we think, oh, that wasn't what I wanted. I want something else. We never reach the end of it. So the wanting becomes an endless hunger. And then on the other side of the coin, the not wanting becomes an endless process too, because the more we push away discomfort, the more we build a habit of needing to push away discomfort. Now, if you've got that habit running in your mind, there's going to always be something uncomfortable to be pushed away. Even if you lock yourself in an ivory tower with no stress around you and everything just right, because there's a habit of needing to push away discomfort, we'll find something uncomfortable. So we're sort of caught up in that chase, running after something, running away from something, and we never find any kind of peace there. So we are making the problem worse.
Yeah. It's like what we practice, we get good at.
Yeah.
So if we're practicing wanting, we're always going to want.
We're experts at that.
Yeah. And I guess if I think about this through the lens of reactivity towards other people and other things, if you practice being reactive and feeling triggered by the comments of others, then that also becomes a habit. And if you change that habit and learn not to get triggered by the comments of others, create that space, understand that that may not be about you, it may be about someone else, or look at it with compassion, try and have acceptance, themes that you write about, which we're going to discuss, then actually that very quickly becomes a habit as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. You can transform yourself in that way by, instead of looking at the things outside yourself as the cause of your suffering or the cause of your happiness, you look at your own mind and you start to work out what habits your mind is running, a little bit like computer programs. And you can write new programs. You change the programming, and through doing that, your life changes because you're starting to work with the mind itself rather than the objects around you or the people around you. You're working at your reactions.
I guess one of the central tenets then of what you're saying is that we have a lot more control, or certainly choice, over how we perceive things and how we see the world. And until we realize that, we're kind of locked in a pattern, feeling that the world is happening to us. Is that what was happening to you in your early 20s when you were in New York?
That was definitely my experience. So I was an actor. I was living in London, then New York, and I was very ambitious. I wanted to have a big career, and I was just starting out as an actor. But what was tripping me up all the time was I had a lot of depression and anxiety, and I didn't know how to deal with that. So what I did was I got as busy as possible, both in terms of work, but also in terms of parties. I became a real party animal. I became an expert at partying, but in a very sort of obsessive, kind of vigorous way, as if I was trying to run away from something in me. And the distractions became my only place of refuge, but the distractions were making me ill. So I reached a point where I just burnt out very, very suddenly.
I mean, you were very, very sick, weren't you?
Extremely sick. I woke up in this apartment in Brooklyn with all the symptoms of a heart attack. I thought, this is it. And I didn't have medical insurance. I didn't have much money. I found some guy who'd do an ECG for $50 or whatever. And they said, yeah, your heart's really in trouble. For another $1,000, we can now give you another scan. I didn't know what to do. And I managed to get to my mum's place. She was living in San Francisco at the time. And so I somehow managed to get on a plane, lying down on the plane. Somehow I ended up with 3 seats to myself. You know, that happens, and then you lie down. And I got to her place and I just collapsed, and I was in bed for a few months and having palpitations all the time, heart palpitations. And any time I tried to get out of bed, my heart would just start racing. I was so ill, and it was very obvious to me that I'd had a complete, total breakdown.
You were diagnosed with burnout, weren't you?
Yeah, very, very severe burnout.
Yeah, and how long would you say it took you to recover from that?
So the recovery involved becoming a monk, because what happened was I was at my mum's place, and I was reading books. She had books about meditation, and I started reading these books, and Buddhism had been there in the background as a family, but I'd never really taken it seriously. But then I'm reading these books and reading about how you are more than your thoughts. You are not your pain. You are not your suffering. You are bigger than that. And this message I found very compelling. And then at the same time, an old school friend told me about a monastery in Scotland where you can be a monk for a year.
Right.
And I thought, I want to do that. That could be the kind of, well, it was like rehab. That's the kind of rehab I'm looking for. And she was going there to be a nun. I went with her, and we both enrolled. 4 days after arriving at the monastery, I became a monk. But only for a year, that was the plan. And really quite soon, after a few weeks, my health really started to recover. The stress started to go down, and also the healthy living of being a monk was incredibly supportive.
Yeah. So you say part of your recovery involved becoming a monk. Have you now recovered, or are you still in recovery?
Well, there's this. That's a huge question, because in a way we're all in recovery from the suffering of life, And I've definitely recovered from that burnout, and that happened quite quickly. But in terms of the bigger picture of the in Buddhism we call it the suffering of samsara, the nature of existence and how tense and difficult it can be. We're all still in recovery, aren't we?
Yeah. You said when you were recounting your life in your early 20s in New York, and I think to many people, certainly people who are teenagers, that sounds like you were living the dream. You're in one of the most happening cities in the world, right? There's a lot going on. There's people from all over the world. There's all kinds of opportunity. You're an actor in New York going to parties. I'm sure 12-year-old Rongan would have looked at that going, wow, this guy's on it. He's made it. That's what I want when I'm older, right? As you were recounting that story, you said, I was running away from something inside of me. What were you running away from?
I thought I was having a fantastic time. I was the life and soul of the party. I was the one always going out, doing stuff. But there was something underneath that I wasn't comfortable with. And this was this sort of deep level of stress and a sort of suppressed feeling of depression, anxiety. I found it would come out at certain moments. So part of the acting training I was doing was method acting, where you really inhabit the role, but you also use parts of yourself and your own experience to produce the performance. And I found that whenever I did that, I would start going into panic and I would have palpitations, because I was accessing parts of myself that I hadn't resolved and I wasn't facing. And when they would come out, I would get incredibly unwell. And then I would have to push that back down again and go out and have a drink and just forget about it. So on the one level, I was having a great time. On another level, I was very unhappy. And I think that's the toxic mixture that created the burnout.
Because in the moment, you are having a good time. In the moment at that party, let's say you've had a few drinks and you're out with friends and whatever else might be going on, we think in that moment we're having a good time. And I think this is really important, because on the face of it, it can seem like, well, why does it matter if I just run away a little from my emotions and I spend 2 hours scrolling social media in the evening rather than dealing with my marriage or my feelings about myself or my depression or whatever an individual may be struggling with. But I think what you described about what happened to you in New York, having severe burnout where you couldn't get pretty much off your mum's bed for months, that's the kind of, in many ways, that's the inevitable end stage if you don't deal with this stuff, because it ain't going anywhere. You either deal with it, you can't really put those emotions in a cage, can you? They will come out at some point.
And I'm grateful for that. I feel grateful. I feel grateful that I couldn't get away with it for much longer. The running away. My body stopped me with this illness. And at the time it was horrible and frightening, but looking back, I'm incredibly grateful that I didn't go on for much longer like that and had to stop and take a look at myself.
But you're grateful now.
Now, at the time, no.
And that speaks to the entire book, right? Or the theme of the book, A Handbook for Hard Times. If you enjoyed that short clip, I think you are really going to enjoy the full conversation, which you can check out here.